we're here for about questioning, but specifically, I'd like us to focus in when we want to question to understand something. So really trying to get this idea that there are situations where it's much better if we don't go in with preconceived ideas, we're actually trying to listen to others, empower others, get their contributions. So the agenda is a bit of a welcome at the beginning, then I talk a little bit about questioning, but actually I really would like us to get into discussion, and particularly about what intentions we've got behind questioning. And then after the discussion, I'll try and set a challenge, and then we'll decide whether you accept the challenge or you'll go away to practice. It is what I mean by accepting. But you may reject it, so we'll have a little bit of a discussion about that and a Q&A at the end. So first, welcome. William and I decided this webinar series so that there was a kind of weekly refresher on skills in general, different topics, so that we all get to think about coaching culture. And my position is we all contribute to a culture. We all influence it, impact it. And so we shouldn't back away from the fact that we think we can influence it. So we should be trying to influence that agile coaching culture that we're all striving for. So I've got a bit of a green wrap here. I really want to challenge the coaching culture you're in. You know, what can you do? And by the end of the session, it's ideal if you've got some new knowledge or a little bit wiser. And in the middle, I'm going to be trying to prompt your thinking, encourage you to be more aware, inspire you to try things out, and therefore support your learning. So we'll see at the end whether I've succeeded. So we've had 4 sessions now where I've kind of got across that conversation needs a relationship. You know, if you're having a conversation, even if it's a social one, you can say there's some sort of social relationship, and you probably do need to smile if you're going to engage someone in conversation if you don't know them. That relationship is an entity, a thing. It exists. It's some kind of connection, and it needs two-way commitment. In other words, everybody involved in that relationship has a view on it. Similarly, all stakeholders in a conversation have a view about the effectiveness of the communication that's happening. So last time we talked about listening and talked about effective listening. Today, we're carrying on that effective communication by talking about questioning. So let me open up some discussion. What does it feel like to be questioned? Perhaps you could share in the chat or open up or unmute yourself and kind of share. When does it feel okay to be questioned, and when does it feel not okay? Any thoughts? I'll just find the chat, and then if you want to write in the chat, you're welcome to write in there as well. So we've all got ideas about interrogation, right? So if you're in a thriller series and someone gets caught and they're interrogated by someone or the police, it's not very pleasant. So does anyone ever get interrogated at work or feel like they've been interrogated, for example? Can't believe you're all working in nice, genteel environments.
Yes, of course. Happens all the time, Shirley.
What, do you feel interrogated?
I think all of us. I don't think, as you rightly say, it wouldn't. All of us would have experienced some degree of interrogation in our careers at some point.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
I will say the same as well.
Yeah. So how does it feel when questioning's like that?
To be fair with me, as one of the leads of my squad, I actually see as a responsibility, and I guess one of the things that I need to be able to do for them is to offer clarity to them. So I actually see as a good thing, because then they have confidence in you. That's why they're asking those questions, and they expect you to be able to give them some answers. That's my point of view.
Yeah, that's when you're being, okay, this is when your team's questioning you. Okay.
Yeah.
So what about putting yourself into the shoes of the team? you ever ask them questions? Can you imagine how they feel when you're asking questions?
Yeah, I can imagine if I'm asking really deep technical stuff. Yeah, I do it a lot. Yeah, to try and have
Okay.
understanding as well.
Okay. So has anyone felt not supported? Or has anyone felt that they might not answer, they might hide some information? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. So it's very human, isn't it, to not answer
Mhm.
questions and to withhold information. Be quiet if you think you really, want to be vindictive. You might, you just might be a bit fed up with somebody, or you just might not be in the mood for whatever. So sometimes, if the questions aren't posed in the right way, then you might not get the answer. You might not get all the information that you want. So this is what we're trying to do, is trying to create that environment. Well, what's the best way to ensure that you get all the information that you need, all the necessary information? And we all know in status meetings, that's really important. We want everyone to be honest, but not everyone is going to be honest. All right, so how do you create that environment to make it honest? So let's, right, so last time we talked about listening. Very important for us to prepare ourselves to listening and showing that we're listening, and create the feeling when someone's speaking that they're being heard. All right, and we talked about observing, making observations and reflecting what we've heard before we ask questions. But today we're going to kind of get into the questioning phase, and my position is that we need to understand the speaker's perspective. So it's about ensuring that we get all the information that we need to have. So we're getting their honest perspective rather than what we imagine the answer should be. So here's my position on good questioning. All right. So if you like, this is good questions, but it's got the backdrop of, yeah, we've set up this listening space. We are trying to be supportive and wanting to hear and wanting the person to feel heard. So good questions then. Open. You probably all heard this before, right? This is traditional coaching style, open questions. What, where, how, who, when, which. Short. Good questions are short questions. If you start giving a long question, it usually makes someone think too hard, and they get lost as to what you're actually asking. So the shorter you make the question, the better, and just one idea. So better to have silence and think about your question before you ask it than ask a long rambling question. Then the language is important. So simple. It needs to be really simply understood for the other person so they know how to answer. And then relevant means, as we talked about last time, if you ask a question from left field, the other person's not going to know where you're coming from. So to give them warning about that is good. But basically, really good questions are following on from what the speaker is saying. And then you're already on the same wavelength in terms of your thinking. And it's not too much of a stretch for someone. They're not confused, and they can maintain their own train of thought as well, which is really important if you want to maintain rapport. Sometimes it's good not to, because you want to challenge somebody, and that's fair enough. But if you're questioning to really understand a situation, then it's good to ask relevant questions. And then in this position where you're trying to get understanding, it often helps the speaker, or you'll often need to help the speaker, I mean, because sometimes they're talking without fully understanding. So actually they're generating their own understanding as they're speaking, especially if you're asking technical questions and things they're still working on. So help them gain clarity. That's a really good idea. And then appropriate means, well, let's think about the rapport. You know, what is good for this other person, to give them time to think. So thinking about your pace can be really important for a slow thinker. especially if you're a fast thinker. You know, you really do need to think about giving some people the space they need. But also your tone, you know, some people don't like to be have a loud voice, shout, you know, not shouting necessarily, but even loud, fast voices, you know, can slow people down. If it sounds aggressive as well, that is going to make them defensive. And then anything you do in the non-verbal way, all your body language, that's going to have an impact as well, as I'm sure you know. So any reactions to those set? Are they all familiar to you? Anyone want to add anything? Okay, so I'm going to move to avoid. So I would say it's really important to avoid leading questions, trick questions, clever ones, subtle ways of getting the answer that you want. If you're really trying to understand something from someone else, then it's best not to be too clever. It's best to ask simple questions. And everyone tells us to avoid why. Now there are, you know, I know some situations why is absolutely fine, and it can be helpful. You just have to be quite careful with it, I would say, because it does sound aggressive. And then avoid airing your own perspective as well, or the issues that are coming up in your mind if you're really trying to help someone understand something. If it's important to set the context, then do that on the agenda and get that contracting going on up front as to what the bounds of the conversation are going to be, and then just focus on what the other person is saying. So those might be a bit more controversial. Any comments on those?
Can you please clarify?
Yes.
Oh, come on, someone's speaking.
Okay.
Can you please clarify about what you mean by leading over there, please?
Leading is sort of got a subtle implication of the answer. I need to give an example. You know, if you said, would it be okay if you thought about this? Or usually they're more subtle than that. Have you thought about X?
Okay, I see what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, so they're not, it's much better to say, what have you thought of already? Because it's a much more open question and allowing someone to fit in the space. If you kind of put an idea into your question, they have to answer that question rather than maintain their own thought processes. But if you ask the open question, they're allowed to they're invited to express what's going on in their head. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to head to this kind of idea that we need to set good intention for good questioning. So I'd like a little bit of discussion now, if possible. What can you think of some situations where you do question? So in my mind, I've got things like planning meetings or status meetings, stand-ups, requirement sessions, that sort of thing. Can you think of some situations when you ask questions of the team, and then talk about what intentions you actually have for that conversation? Anyone brave enough to? Give it a go? Who talked about the team asking questions? Because I guess that would be spawned by a question by the leader, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Yeah. So that sounds like you're giving them some information and then you ask a question whether they've understood. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So So in a sense, you know, asking the question, any questions then, it's a good question, it's an open question, and people can come in and ask. What other situations do you ask your team questions?
If you want to hear their thoughts on the particular ongoing discussion, or you want to know if they have any addition to or contributions to that.
Yeah, okay, great. So that sounds very inviting to me. Yeah, so nice style open. So the intention is you just want to hear, is that right?
Right.
Do you get frustrated? And do you ever get frustrated with the fact they don't answer what you in the way you want?
Sure, it can be frustrating.
So when the frustration happens, what happens to the intention, do you think? The intention to get their contributions? I mean, you know, intention is very fleeting, isn't it? You start off with good intentions, but intentions change during a conversation. Oh, who's got lots of background noise? Sorry, I can't see my participants at the minute for some reason. So I can't see.
I think he's gone quiet now.
Okay. So anyone else? Does this question make sense? Who can think of a situation when they ask their team questions?
Sometimes in my scenario, I've asked questions just to get conversation going. So if we are elaborating on something very important that will help the team achieve its goals, then you can ask questions to get people talking, just get discussions going.
Yeah. So you have an intention there to get discussions going. So how do you do that? What works?
That was part of the reason why I asked about the leading, because there are times where I have to ask leading questions, especially if people are reluctant to talk. Sometimes I do. Obviously, I do my research beforehand. I just don't go in, but I ask leading questions where people can answer. People who are experts on that particular area can answer, then get conversations going. Yeah. In a sense, explaining what you need up front is sort of it's contracting for the conversation. So you can still set it up saying, right, we need, this conversation is going to be about whatever it's going to be about, and then ask people for contributions. So you can still ask for their contributions, but in a more general way. You can ask for their thoughts and contributions rather than giving them any suggested answers. This is why I'm trying to be quite open with my questions, even though I'm trying to model this type of questions today, and I'm picking myself up, finding this quite difficult, because it's so easy to give a leading question and give people an answer to get them to talk. And sometimes I agree, you do need to kind of seed a conversation. But there are other ways of doing it. So setting up a conversation to be a sharing of ideas, and then doing a round robin where each person takes it in turn to say something is a good way of encouraging everyone to speak. So in a meeting, it's really good to have everyone have the same airtime. So then they know what to expect. They know they've got that 5-minute slot or whatever it is, or 1-minute slot, and they can say their piece. People get used to that, and then they start preparing things to bring to that session, because that's the format of the meeting. So then the leader has less work to do, because it becomes a recognized process, recognized format of the meeting.
So any other intention, so getting their contributions is really important. What about in getting them to be honest? Is that a given in your culture, that people are going to be honest and give you all the information you need?
How can you tell?
Sorry, who's that?
It's Abby. I'm saying, how can you tell when people are honest or not?
You can't ultimately, can you? How do you know you've got, let's put it another way, how do you know you've got enough information that you need? I think you probably have a gut feel for how much someone's telling you and how much they're not telling you. You might not be 100% right, but I'm sure you have an impression.
Yeah. Sort of.
So if someone's really quiet, there would be an intention to encourage them to say more. At what point would that be considered a worry because you weren't getting enough information? And here I am asking a leading question now.
I think in terms of that situation, I'll use my scenario, my experience. Sometimes we go into meetings where there may be people who I know stuff from, from my individual interactions with them, but they may not be very comfortable in doing so. So then maybe if I'm leading the discussion, I can just, obviously politely stop the conversation and ask them if they have an opinion and encourage them in a very nice way. But obviously I've built relationships with them, so I know when to bring them in and to add value to what we're discussing.
Yeah. Okay. So this is great then. So this tells me that you are looking, that example tells me you are looking to maintain the relationship that you've got with them. And this comes first in a sense for you, which I think is good, because we're making it clear that the relationship underpins what questions you can actually ask or what questions you feel you can ask. So the intentions we've got in our questioning do change for different people, and we are aware, even in our gut, that something is going on, and we're making judgments all the time as to what we can ask and what we cannot ask, when we can encourage, when we cannot, which I think is really important. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get across, that questioning is not easy, and there's no right and wrong way of questioning. So judgments about the relationship we've got with people is paramount for setting intentions and then deciding what questions to ask. So all I'm saying really here is there's a priority order of when we do things, and the thinking about our relationships is probably more important than worrying about the questions. Okay, I'm trying to encourage you. So here's my challenge coming: to set intention for good questions, get good questioning. So get that relationship right, get the listening right, get the environment, the kind of listening space right, so that you have a good relationship and can ask a question. There's no right and wrong way, but you might want a strategy for asking questions. And I have found a really nice YouTube video, definitely worth a listen. It talks about funneling, and it includes the probing to understand, but it talks about a funnel, and really nice way of saying that there's no good and bad questions, in fact. All right, so it all comes down to judgment and what you're in, the relationship you're intending to have with the other person. So please go away and look at that. So here's my take on it. So back to my model. So I've got this 3-ring model. The center's all about the brain, all right? So person's thinking skills. So we need to prepare ourselves to question, all right? That means we're listening, we're curious, we're open to what happens. We need to question to understand. So just like last time, we've got that positive regard relationship. We're reflecting back to maintain rapport, and then we question. And then most of the time we're in this kind of supportive stance, like you've all said. All right, you want to support somebody else to clarify. You need to probe for information, and you need to have some understanding of when you can probe and when you cannot probe. And you also, it's really good to encourage the other person to come up with the answers, which you'll see in the YouTube video as well. So yeah, my main issue is focus on the relationship and the ultimate purpose that you've got. So ultimately, it is about building a good team culture, isn't it? Everything is about that, so that the team is performing well together. Right, so my challenge is to think, support others first, and then question. So here's the $1,000 million question. You know, do you accept that challenge? Would you go away and experiment and think about in this coming week when you're with the team, how supportive you're being to others when you're questioning? So happy to have discussion, or just open for questions. But I'll pose the question, what has been useful, and anything else you think I need to say to help you?
This is a fantastic discussion.
So what are you taking away? What do you think you might do differently now?
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to support people and not make them feel defensive when you're asking them questions, so you can get as much as possible from them, and the truth, as especially extracting the truth from what they are saying to you.
Yeah, so
you don't ask them questions that are like that will get them on the defensive side. Yeah, you are likely to get the truth from them.
Okay.
So I was particularly intrigued with the leading bit because like I've used it sometimes when I feel as a strategy to get conversations going sometimes. But like I said previously, I do my research before doing so. So I think I'll be much more cautious now, just based on the reasonings that you give me. I'll be much more cautious now. It's nice when doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying go the whole hog the other way. I definitely think you need to contract for any kind of discussion up front. So you're setting some boundaries, but within those boundaries, maybe you can be freer to what you're allowed to be discussed. So that it's like setting up a brainstorming session, isn't it? You allow people to say whatever they like, and nothing's criticised. So it's just finding the right place that you want to be, the right scope you want to give people in the meetings you're having, in the discussions, conversations that you're having. So I agree. There's a time and place for every kind of conversation. But if you want to get people to contribute and feel that they have contributed, it's the open questioning is really important, because they feel like their ideas are important. And so creating that space that they feel they want to contribute because it's important and they're valued is so important and valuable, I think. So yeah, I'm encouraging you to experiment and see what you can do, and just trying more open questions without suggesting answers. Leaving silence can be quite a good thing. So that it's clear you're not going to contribute anything until they do. Okay.
I also learned that asking why is is not very nice. So I'll find a better way of framing questions around such
Yeah, maybe, you know, what reasons can you give for that? Is an open question.
Yeah.
So it's in, you know, that helps people to start to form arguments for why they think what they think. And, you know, it's just a simple way of doing it. It's just, it's more inviting than why that seems to, you know, it's really short and sharp and in your face kind of thing. It's just, yeah. But there's sometimes, you know, if you've got really good rapport and you've had a long conversation, that why is that asked in a very soft way can be really powerful too. So yeah, just play with it and gauge the reaction that you're getting. So yeah, this is all about building awareness. The experimentation is, you know, thinking, well, okay, let me just be conscious of what I'm doing and what the reaction is, what works, what doesn't work. And you'll find different things work with different people always. So yeah, all these things can be experimented with. Okay, any other questions or comments? I'm really happy that we've had a couple of really positive comments. So that sounds really good. If you're willing to go away and experiment, that is absolutely fantastic. Does anyone feel less enthusiastic or less sure about making any changes? Because you're all allowed to have your own opinions. Hi.
Hi, I'm Deborah.
Hi, Deborah.
I'm not unsure. It's just that I'm, can I say, a little scared about how I'm going to go about this, because if you've had a whole set of way of doing things, having a challenge in this way is, for me, very new. I've always thought that I was a nice person, you know, air quotes, but yeah, I can see how I probably have been asking the wrong questions sometimes, because in workshops scenarios or brainstorming sessions, can be challenging sometimes to get people to engage. It seems like they're afraid to speak, or they're holding back for some reason, and it kind of stalls the flow of the meetings. And I think it'll be worth watching that video and challenging the way I've been asking questions and throwing questions at people.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I think it's the you know, if you're more aware of it, that's absolutely fantastic. Investment of 30 minutes today, just to be more aware of the questions that we ask and the situations when we ask them. That is valuable. All right. So if you feel unsure about making any changes tomorrow, that's fine. Don't make any changes. Just be more aware of what's happening, and maybe ask people for more feedback about it, so that you build your awareness, and then don't change everything overnight. Just in one situation, just try things and see what works. You know, the workshopy things. Again, I think if you present it more, right, we're all going to have a conversation about this, and then ask people in turn to give their comments. If everyone has to contribute, and that's the process, you know, they find it very hard to avoid it then.
True.
So, you know, just encouraging that way, even if they say one word or they agree, you know, that's allowed as well. But giving people equal airtime so that it becomes normal to contribute, even in a small way, I think it's good. Even if they contribute about some social event, you know, or, you know, on some less desperate, urgent work item, getting them encouraged to just contribute generally is always good.
Thank you. And I also found what you said about building relationships very interesting.
Yeah.
It's usually the last thing I want to do, because I'm only here to do a job. I want to do it and get out. But obviously, it's very important to build relationships, to get to know the people, not necessarily as friends, but I mean, get to know them, get to understand their point of view, so that you can better serve them when you have conversations with them.
Yeah, I think I learned the hard way. I'm not presenting myself as an expert on soft skills. I'm here to present soft skills because I was a very task-driven project manager in my career. So I understand that task is important. That for me, task comes before people. So, I admit it. I put my hand up. I admit it. But I have learned that actually I'd have had a much better career if I'd built relationships more. And it's not that I wasn't friendly with people, and it's not that I didn't build relationships, but I didn't I could have had better relationships with people. I think they'd have supported me more in a general way. I was very good at team leadership, and we always had a good team, and we had good rapport, and noisy meetings where we thrashed things out. So it was always fun and vibrant, but and happy in a sense. But I don't think, from a career point of view, it was probably ideal. So I can see where I missed out, and it would have been so much more useful. I had to challenge to get honest answers, whereas I think if I'd been a little bit more engaging with people, they'd have naturally got involved without me having to challenge so much.
I know you're saying that these skills can be learned, but sometimes it's a lot harder for some certain personalities than others. Some personalities are just, it's easy with them, it comes naturally. With others, really, really struggle to get there.
Yeah, but you don't have to have the same relationship with everybody.
True.
So you just need to work out between you what makes sense for you both in the work environment. What does it take to get the work done? So it's that kind of relationship you need. But each person will have a different expectation about collaborating at work. So engaging the team and how we want to work together in that kind of discussion is probably very valuable, because you can get people to air what they like about working together and what they think is important. And that's a way of finding out about people. Open up discussion, and you'll hear more about that if you do it. How do we want to run meetings? How do we want to run planning sessions? All those things can be aired, and it's interesting what people say.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for the question and the owning up. Yeah, well, thanks. If I can build awareness, that's my job done. That's all I'm trying to do with this coaching series, because the more aware we are, the more chance we have of building a culture that everyone is happy, is an agile coaching culture which is full of empowerment for everyone, and everyone can bring their own thoughts into the environment and drive things forward. High performance, that's what we're all about. So I think I can bring this to a halt then. If everyone's happy, I'll happily stay on for questions if you've got more, but thank you very much for your engagement. I love it when you're all discussing things. This is what soft skills is all about, is airing what's happening and seeing how we can improve. So thank you very, very much, and hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got questions, you're welcome to stay on, but I'll just sit here and wait for everyone to leave otherwise.
Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you very much,
Thank you very much.
Shirley.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.